Okay, we're live, so everybody should be careful what you say because it's going to be up on YouTube and everybody be able to see it. Okay, it's every year when I give this year, it's like coming around in a circle because I've been doing this for 39 years. I remember those of you remember what I used to do it by Miriam Singer's house. That was years ago. And now Baruch Hashem, we've evolved, but and it's all familiar faces. At least most of the people are familiar faces. I'm surprised that I'm standing here delivering this year. I say this every year. I say the same jokes, but you should be delivering it. So many times you've heard this year, but it's very special that you come. And Pesach is a yantif that's based on halacha. Everything that we do on Pesach is halachically governed, and there's a lot of complicated rules and laws, more so than I think any other yantif. And so it's always important. If you could come next year again also, because as many times as you hear it, it's always good to review. It's easy to not remember things. People oftentimes quote me things that I never said. They tell me, "Don't you remember 5 years ago you told me you could do this and that?" And so, because that's natural, As time goes on, things fade and get blurry. So let's review. They follow the same pattern that I have done in the past. First thing I'll talk about preparing the kitchen for Yantif, and then I'll talk about medications and different products and what's available from the OU and things of that sort. Okay, so the basic concept of koshering is that the utensils in halacha absorb the taste, the tam of the food that's being prepared in them, and therefore, in order to kosher, you have to expel the taste. If you put a piece of ham inside a pot and you cooked it, so we said that some of the ham or the flavor of the ham went into the pot, and when you use it next time, it'll come out. Even if you put something kosher in, it'll go into the kosher food and make it not kosher. So you have to get rid of that time. You have to expel it from the pot. So, but there's two ways to kosher. And one way is libun, and the other way is hagal. Libun means with fire; it has to get red hot, and hagala is with water. And why do I have two different ways? In other words, with boiling water, because there's a principle, kabbalah kachpoto. The way it came in is the way it goes out. If it comes in with water, then you could expel it with water. If you, let's say, you had a pot and you used it during the year to make macaroni, now you want to use it for Pesach, so you'd have to put it into a pot of boiling water, or you could do it in the pot itself. We'll talk about that, but it was absorbed through water, so you could expel it through water. But if it was absorbed through a dry heat, like if you used on a grill, you put something that was chametz stick, you heat it up knish on a grill, so then it's absorbed through dry heat. So then it's not because it's dry heat. So we say it's more intensely absorbed in the vessel. So you can only kosher with dry heat as well. And the dry heat, it has to be rather hot. It has to be approximately the temperature of well, there's different types of koshering with dry heat. But I don't know. I don't want to confuse you. But basically, it has to be very hot when you're koshering with dry heat. A frying pan requires dry heat. You can't kosher a frying pan in boiling water, even though you spray the frying pan. But basically, that's just that it shouldn't stick. But or use a little oil. If it was always deep fried, then it would be the same as a pot. But if you use it sometimes deep fried, but some other times you use it just with a little bit of oil, so then it would be the same as a grate on a grill, and you'd have to kosher it with libun. So let's talk. That's just like a general introduction. One other thing that I have to tell you is what materials can be koshered. So you could kosher metal, you could kosher stone, and you can kosher wood, which surprises people. We cannot kosher earthenware. That's in Hebrew. That's called kli cheres. In the Chumash it says you can't kosher kli cheres. And the big question is, what about glass? So glass, there's a difference between Pesach and all year. All year, many people say that glass could be koshered, but for Pesach, The minhag is based on the Shulchan Aruch. We don't kasher glass for Pesach unless the person was destitute and they couldn't afford to buy new glasses. So then there are those that are lenient and allow kashering glasses, and the Sfardim actually kasher glass, but the Ashkenazim. For those of you that are Sfardim, you could kasher glass. But if you're an Ashkenazi, we don't kasher glass. We treat glass the same as earthenware. We say that what gets absorbed doesn't come out when you even if you cook, even if you heat it with fire, with hot water. The other big question is what about synthetic materials? So that I explain every year is a difference of opinion between poskim. Some poskim say that you could kasher synthetics, which would be like Teflon, Formica, Melmax, things like that. Other poskim say that you cannot. Ramosha Feinstein was machmer. He was the one who was more stringent. He said you cannot kasher a synthetic material or plastic. You can't kasher for Pesach. Ramosha says during the year you could, but for Pesach you can't kasher. The rules of Pesach are much more stringent, but other poskim are lenient. The probably most kashrus agencies kasher plastic. If they didn't, they would have a hard time functioning. They wouldn't be able to kasher factories for Pesach because the factories, some of the equipment is plastic, some of it is plastic tubing and things like that. So the OU, as well as probably most of the kashrus agencies, do kasher plastic for Pesach, but there are those that don't. I mentioned this always with respect to kashering the dishwasher. The grates of the dishwasher are usually not straight metal. They're coated with something which may be probably is a synthetic material. So according to Ramosha, you wouldn't be able to kasher it. Whereas according to other poskim, you could. You'll ask me, so what should I do? It's up to you, because if you want to be machmer, so then you should be machmer. If you want to rely on lenient opinion, you're not worse than the OU or the Chavkei or the other kashrus agencies. So there's a basis to be lenient. Before you kasher, the pot has to be clean. You have to remove anything that's adhering to the pot has to be washed off, and even if there's rust on the pot, you have to remove the rust because otherwise there might be chametz hiding underneath the rust. If you have a serrated knife, we don't kasher serrated knives because it's hard to unless it's very wide, ridges. But if it's like a fine serrated knife, we don't kasher because we're concerned that maybe you won't be able to get it properly clean. And a knife with a handle, if the handle is very tight, you could kasher it. But if it's two pieces and the handle, there's room for something to get in between the handle and the blade, then you would not be able to kasher it as well. When you kasher silverware, you have to make sure that the prongs are clean. The whiskey cups we don't kasher, even though technically we should be able to, but the minhag is not to kasher whiskey cups. Okay, so let's talk about specifics now. If you want to kasher, let's say you want to kasher your silverware. So how do you do that? So first of all you have to have a kosher LePesach pot. That you have to use a pot that's kosher for Pesach. If you don't have a big enough pot, so you could kasher the pot itself. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you have to use a pot that's kosher for Pesach. The item that you're kashering has to be not used for 24 hours. So those are the rules. It has to be. It has to sit idle for 24 hours, at least idle with chametz, and it has to be totally clean. Oftentimes, the hardest part about kashering is to make sure that the things are clean. When you go into a hotel, you don't do that. But if a caterer goes to a hotel and they want to kasher the kitchen, it could take them 2 days just to clean the kitchen because it's full of but there's grease and other things. So, but you can't if something's not clean, it cannot be kasher. So you have to. I saw last night. There's a fellow who's the maitre d' in one of the halls in Lakewood, and I forgot what it's called, but the Masachayim. That's it. Yeah. So his father was used to do kashering, and he kashered Dunkin' Donuts for us years ago. I think that goes back about 35 years, and he spent literally a day and a half, 2 days in Duncan. He worked straight through the night, and it took a long, and he worked alongside. He had other people helping him to clean it, but it was a very big job. Hopefully, your homes are not as difficult as Dunkin' Donuts, but so it has to be clean in order to kosher it. So and so what you do is you boil water in the kosher Pesach pot, and then you throw in the pieces. The water has to be bubbling when you're koshering. So if you're koshering silverware, if you put in 10 pieces, maybe the water will stop bubbling. So you have to then wait till it starts bubbling again. You should not kosher a bunch of pieces on top of each other, because then the water maybe won't get in properly. So you do one at a time. You take the silverware. You could do it very, very fast. You just throw in one piece after another. As long as the water is still boiling, you could kosher the silverware. It should stay in the boiling water for about 15 seconds, and then afterwards you take it out and you put it under cold water. And this is the same procedure for year round. I at least once or twice a week I get questions where the response is you have to kosher it, and because mistakes happen in kitchens. So it's the same method. You boil a pot of water, and you drop it into the water, and you let it sit for about 15 seconds before you kosher. Very, very important. I said it has to sit idle for 24 hours. So the same thing is true during the year. If something became, let's say you put a milchig spoon into a fleshig pot and you have to kosher it, so you have to wait 24 hours before you kosher the spoon. If the pot won't fit in all at once, you can do it in stages. You could kosher the first one side of the pot, and then you rotate it and kosher the other side of the pot, and that's how you would make a kosher. There's a benefit of koshering that you have on Pesach, and that is that normally you don't kosher from milchiks to fleishiks or fleishiks to milchiks, because the concern is you won't remember what it is. Your husband will come home at the end of the day and say, "What is the silverware today? Did we make it milchiks or fleishiks?" Or your wife will, and she'll say, or you'll say, "Well, I think it's milchiks." He'll say, "Yeah, I think it's fleishiks." So it's not a good idea. It's better to have. But once you're koshering, then you're allowed to change the status. So if you want to go from dairy to milk to parve or to fleishiks or vice versa, you could do that once you're koshering for Pesach. I would just tell you that in general, I recommend not koshering, because it's besides the effort that's involved. You have to make sure it's 100% clean. It's easy to miss things that are still there, and it's not. Baruch Hashem, we're able to afford a set of Pesach dishes and silverware and pots, so it's better not to kosher. That's certain things you have to kosher. You have to kosher your sink, but utensils, it's not necessary to kosher, and it's much it's easier, and halachically it's going to be less. There's no problem if you don't have to kosher. The pot itself, if you have a big pot and you can't fit the pot into another pot, so what do? You can't. How do you kosher the pot? So you could you would have to fill the pot to the top, and you bring it to boil, and that would kosher the pot. You don't have to immerse it in another pot. You could kosher it as a standalone. However, the water has to overflow over the brim of the pot, and in order to, because the when you were cooking, it may have splattered on the rim, not the brim, the rim. The way that you do that is with what's called an even luban, a white hot stone. You put a stone on the fire, and then you put the stone when it's coming to a boil, that you fill it up as high as you can, and then once it's boiling, you put the stone in, and the stone will be, not only because of the displacement, but also because of the heat, the stone will cause the pot to overflow, and that'll kosher the pot. Now, it doesn't really have to be a stone. The Gemara says that it's. You want to stay for this year? No, I'm just curious. Scared. Okay, so you don't have to use a stone. You could use anything that gets hot. You could use a piece of metal. You could use a metal pliers. The main thing is you have to be very careful if you're using something hot like that, and if you drop it in too fast, you could splatter and burn yourself. A lot of mashgichim have been severely burned doing koshering in hotels and in plants. It's very and they wear very protective gear. They wear these huge boots that go all the way up to their stomach, and they have these huge gloves. But it's a dangerous business to kosher. But in your homes, you should be also very careful when you're koshering, not to burn yourself. After you kashered, if you have a pot that you use, a kosher Pesach pot, you need to re-kasher the pot after you used it for koshering, and there's a lot of chumras of Pesach that don't apply the whole year. The whole year, if silverware became non-kosher, you put it into a kosher pot and you kasher it. You don't have to worry about, since you haven't used it for 24 hours, it doesn't affect the pot. Pesach, though, we're much more machmir, so you even have to kasher the pot itself, and the way you would do that would be to fill it with water, bring it to a boil. You don't have to overflow it, but you would bring the pot to a boil. That's one of the chumras that we have. We have a lot of chumras on Pesach. One of the reasons why I have so many chumras is because Pesach chametz is also b'mashu, and there's no bittul on Pesach. Normally around the year the small amounts of things that are not kosher would be bottle, but Pesach, even a tiny drop of chametz that falls into a pot on Pesach is not bottle. So we're far more careful on Pesach than we are the rest of the year. Okay, so that's how you kasher either silverware, or if you want to kasher kiddush cups, you could do it that way. Again, you wouldn't kasher whiskey cups, but the cups they use for called schnapsglazel. But you could, a regular kiddush cup you could kasher, and you could kasher pots the same way. Now, if you want to kasher a pot, you have to make sure that usually you have to remove the handle, because between the handle and the pot, if it's a screw-on handle, if it's one piece, then you don't have to do anything to the handle. But if it's a screw-on handle, then you would have to remove the handle in order to kasher it, because otherwise the chametz might be lingering between the handle and the pot. So it's a whole business to take apart the pot, and then you would take the handle and throw it into the pot as well, and make sure it's clean. And so again, it's a big pachka. Better to buy a new pot than to have to go through all that. If there's nicks in the pot, you can't kasher, because if there's nicks, if there's a nick, it has to be clean. Because usually when there's a nick, so something gets the food collects in there. So it has to be very clean. And okay. You know what else about kashering pots is that the rim is very difficult to clean, because if the lip folds over, there's always stuff under the lip. If you want to test it, if you take a candle or a match and you put it under the rim, you'll see it'll start to it'll flare up, because there's fat under there or other things, and it'll spark or catch on fire. So you have to. It's almost impossible to clean out. If it has a lip, it's very, very difficult to clean under it. The only thing you could do is you could burn it out. So you could take a candle and slowly go around the rim and make sure that you hold it there for a minute or so. And then when it stops flickering with whatever's there, then it's basically. Again, it doesn't pay to. Mashgichim, when they kasher, they come equipped with blowtorches. They don't patchk around with candles. They have a blowtorch, and they have steam jetties that produce very high intensity and hot steam. That's the tools of the trade. But in our kitchens, we don't have these things, so it's very hard to kash. The pot between the handles and the rims, it's almost impossible to kasher a pot. Okay. Every year I get asked about hot water urns. A hot water urn is, if it needs to be kashered, it's very, very difficult to kasher it, because you would have to You'd have to fill the urn to the top and bring it to a boil, and then well, first you have to wash off the outside because a lot of urns. I don't know where it comes from, but urns always get dirty. At least in my house, it collects dirt. So you have to make sure that the outside is clean, and then you don't have to boil the outside, but you have to boil the inside, and you have to bring it to a boil and put it in a rack. The harder part is to kasher the lid, the cover to the urn. So if it's a pump urn, you can't kasher the cover because if there's a computer chip in the pump urns. How do I know? Because I was once toivel a pump urn, and then it stopped working. I brought it back to the store. I told the guy it's broken. He says, "I'm broken. You brought it to a mikveh, right?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "That's why it doesn't work because it's a computer chip that gets ruined." What do you do if, as far as tefillah, what you could do is talked about many times. If you sell a portion of the urn to a non-Jew, so then that obviates the need for kasher. You don't have to kasher if a certain percent, I'd say even 5-10% belongs to a non-Jewish person, then you don't have to kasher. And what you could do is, but they have to make a kinyan, the non-Jew. They have to pick it up. So you hand it to them, say, I want you to acquire for religious purposes, acquire 5% of my urn. And then they pick it up a foot, and then it becomes 5% of theirs. And then you say, is it okay if I use it? And I presume that they'll say it's okay. But it's very hard to a pump urn you can't kasher. If it's one of the old-fashioned urns where the cover is just there's no wires in the cover, and there's no computer chips, then you could immerse the cover in water and cover and kasher the cover that way. In the OU directory, it says that urns that are used there's a section about how to kasher everything in the kitchen. So I don't agree with everything it says here, even though I work for the OU, and I'm going 44. Okay, so I spoke to somebody about it, and I need to send an email to the person to remind them for next year to write it differently. If they say if the urn is only used for heating water, run hot water through hot water through the water tap for 10 seconds while pouring boiling water over the water tap. So I don't even know what that means over the water tap is where the water comes out of. So, but that doesn't make any sense because as they're saying that you should you're kashering the spout basically by running hot water. You're kashering the spout. But what about the rest of the urn? So I asked the person, "But what are you talking about?" He said he meant that if it's clean, then you don't have to kasher the rest of the urn. You just have to kasher the spout because the spout, maybe you put a glass under the spout. You made let's say soup, and you put it under the spout, and some of the steam rose and hit the spout. That's why he said you should kasher the spout. The rest of the urn, he didn't think you needed to kasher. I said, but the urn it splatters. He says, why? It's clean. It's a kitchen. See, that's a man that doesn't know anything. It's not true. I mean, even though I'm also from the same gender, but I know it's not true. The pots, anything in the kitchen gets dirty. And even so, he said, "Well, but some people have a special area in the kitchen where they put it. It doesn't move me. Even if it's special area, the likelihood is that with the course of time you touch it and your hands could be greasy or whatever. So anyway, I don't agree with that part. Probably next year it won't be written that way. So okay."
But theoretically, if you have a special place designated just for
If
water,
you're
you
if
don't
you're
use
if
it
it
for Shabbos,
if
you
you
don't
only
pour hot water anyway, because you can't
yes,
have the same position.
if it's clean, if it never gets dirty, then you don't have to kasher the outside. Just the only thing you have to kasher would be the spout, that like it says in the OU directory.
Because that's what I have. Because really, we mamish only use the urn
No, I'm not talking
for
about what you
Shabbos
use it for,
and
but
Shabbos.
where is it located? In the kitchen on the counter?
Well, I have to. One is on the kitchen on the side, totally on
All
the
right,
side,
look,
away from everything.
if it's far
And the other one is
if
like
it's
in
far
the
enough
living room.
away and it never gets dirty, so then it's okay.
I mean, the only thing, it gets splattered with the steam, but it's on Shabbos, so
Yeah,
it's mamish
that's
just hot water from
yeah,
a styrofoam cup.
yeah, that's okay, but that's what it depends on. Yeah, okay, it depends if you're sure that it's far enough away, and You can look at it, see if it's dirty, see if there's stains on the outside. If there's no stains, then okay. All right. What now? Let's talk about how you kasher a stove. So there's the stove top, and then there's the oven. So the stove top. Well, first let's talk about the oven. The oven you could kasher one of two ways. Either you could put it on a self-cleaning cycle, and that will kasher it. And I don't know. Usually they run like 3 hours, 4 hours. So 3 hours is sufficient. The other way is to put it on 550 for an hour, and that will kasher it as well. But there's a big difference between the two, and that is that if it's at 550, you have to first make sure the oven is clean beforehand. If it's on self clean, so then whatever's there gets burned out. And even though when you open it up, you see the particles there, but that stuff is already burned to a crisp, and it doesn't have, halachically, it's not considered non-kosher or chametz. So if you're using a self-cleaning cycle, then you don't have to do anything to the oven. It's good to clean it as much as you can beforehand, but basically you do the self-cleaning cycle, and it takes care of it. A lot of times the racks, the newer ovens for the last probably 20 years, they tell you not to keep the racks in when you kash it because it'll get discolored. The racks have some kind of finish. So what do you do then? How do you? So some people have separate racks just for Pesach. When you buy the oven, it's cheaper to buy it. But if you try to buy it afterwards, it's very expensive to buy racks. So what you could do is you could first kasher with self-cleaning the oven, keep the racks out, and then put the racks back in and turn it on to 550 and kasher the racks separately. But you just have to make sure that the racks are very clean. Usually the racks are the dirtiest part of the oven, and you might need easy off in order to get all the stuff off of the rack. If you use easy off either on the oven or on the racks, if it doesn't come off the first time, so you spray it again. If it doesn't come off 2 times, you could assume that it's already, because of the acid in the spray, that it's no longer an edible entity. But so that's if you're kashering with self-cleaning cycle, then you don't have to wait 24 hours. You can kasher right away. But if you're kashering on 550, then you have to wait 24 hours before you kasher the oven for various reasons. My repairman, Steve Josefowitz, tells me that it's a bad idea to run the self-cleaning cycle because he says that usually destroys the ovens. So do it one time a year. We'd have the luxury of using it, and hopefully the oven will survive. But in general, it's not a good idea to self-clean.
What about the oven door? Does that need to be covered when you use it?
No, the oven door does not. It's sufficient. The heat level, the same way it kashers everything else, it'll kasher the oven door. You'll see in a microwave it's a little differently, but in an oven you don't have to cover the door.
If you're willing to risk discoloring your racks in the self-clean cycle, do you need to clean the racks?
No, then you don't have to clean them. You could put them right in, and
Is there the spot that the racks are touching?
doesn't matter because when you're kashering with water, then you don't want things touching each other. But when you're kashering with heat, it burns it out. So it does even.
One more question. All of the kashering for 24 hours, is it clean first and then wait 24 hours, or if it's not?
It has to be 24 hours after it was used with heat. If you wanted to clean it with cold water, then that doesn't interrupt the 24 hours. But if you washed it with hot water, then you'd have to wait 24 hours from the time you washed it.
Right. So even like for your sink, so if someone used your sink but it wasn't hot.
If the sink, the best thing is to shut down the valves on the bottom so nobody accidentally uses the sink.
Right. So
But if it's used with cold water, that doesn't interrupt the 24 hours. It's only when there's heat or hot water. Okay, so now the stovetop there's different types of stovetops. So if it's if it's electric coil that's above the surface of the stovetop, that's the easiest to kasher. You just turn it on until it gets red hot, and it's kashered. The area in between the burners or the area that gets hot does not need to be kosher. You don't have to pour boiling water on that. It's best to put some silver foil on that because in case something splatters, you don't want it to splatter from one pot and hit the stove and then splatter to the next pot. It's a little bit far-fetched, but that's what people usually do. But if you do cover your stovetop with foil, you have to be careful that you don't cover the area where the flames are coming out. The gas, if you do it too close to the burner, the carbon dioxide can get caught under the silver foil. So it's more important to be to be very careful. So you could put a strip of foil in between the burners, but don't make the foil too close to the area where the burners are. You don't have to, when you're koshering a stovetop, you don't have to kosher the knobs. Somebody asked me today about covering the knobs with silver foil. There may be people that do that, but you're not required to do that. You just you wash them so that there should be nothing on them. But I mean, they don't come in contact with the food anyway. But the knobs you just have to wash. If there's a cup a plate underneath the fire, or on the stovetop itself, there's those metal things where the flames come out of it. You don't have to kosher that. It should be clean as best as you can. But the one thing that you do need to kosher are the grates. If it's a coil and you put it right on the coil, then there's no grates. But if it has grates, so then you have to kosher the grates. To kosher the grates, they have to be clean. And there's two ways you could do it. Either you could turn on the fire and heat up the grates on the stovetop. The problem with that is that the heat does not necessarily transfer well to the whole grate, especially if sometimes you have a long grate where they give you extra space where you can have a grate that covers two burners, so there's space in between, and they make the material such that it doesn't get that, the in between doesn't get that hot, or none of that metal gets real hot. So you'd have to get the whole thing hot. So the way to do that would be to cover it with silver foil. I don't like to recommend that because you have a fire going with underneath silver foil. You could put a blech also on the on top, but you just have to be careful. You don't make it too hot. So a better way, in my opinion, is to kosher it in the oven. And when if you put a grate, I mean, first it has to be clean, but then if you put it in the oven on 550 for an hour, the same way we kosher the oven, it would also kosher the grates. It should be clean, shouldn't be used for 24 hours, and then you put it in the oven for 24 hours, and then the grate will be koshered. Yes?
Can you kosher your oven and then put the chametz?
Yeah, it won't make a chametz stick, correct. I mean, unless it's dripping with right, yeah, right. It's not, unless it's very, it's greasy and everything. But if it's relatively clean, then that's not a problem.
Do it all together, put the grates in the...
You could put you could do it at the same time, right? You don't have to do it in stages. You could put you could fill up your oven with the racks and the grates and everything.
Right, if you don't want to put the grates in on self-clean, then put it in for 550.
Yeah, do it on 550. What?
I put it on self-clean.
Okay, you could do it on self-clean. I mean, once you've done it on self-clean, it won't turn worse. It won't get worse than after the first time. So far, so good. Okay.
And it didn't discolor.
All right. So, all right. So that's the two. You gotta if there's a rack, you have to the rack has to get hot. You do in place, but it's kind of difficult to do that. Maybe if it just covers the flame and it doesn't extend beyond, so then it will be enough. If you turn on the fire, you put a pot on top of it. That'll spread the fire, and that'll be, you could heat it up that way. If you're doing it on the fire, probably about 10-15 minutes would be 10-15 minutes if you're doing it on the fire.
And you use a kosher lepesa pot, obviously.
Um,
Spread the fire, to spread the heat.
He's doing the grates now.
Okay.
Yeah, you should use a kosher Pesach pot. Yeah, I mean you should make sure it's relatively clean when you start out, and it's not greasy.
So then you have to re-kosher that pot?
No, because it's No, because it's with heat, so the dry heat.
Foil?
What?
Could you just use foil on top?
You could put foil on top of the burner also, right? I just say I'm nervous about fires. You put foil on top, so then the fire is under the foil,
Otherwise, the oxygen.
and the carbon dioxide is captured under the foil. So I don't know.
What I once did with the pot on top of the grates on my military side, because I don't have an oven in it, the dials that were plastic
Started to melt.
started to melt.
Yeah. All right.
Did not.
Okay. Now there's one type of stovetop that you can't kosher, and that is the glass flat tops, which you got it. This year during winter vacation, I must have received 25 calls from people. How do you kosher a glass flat top? Because I don't know where they were vacationing, but everybody, I guess now all the hotels they use those kind of stoves. The reason why you can't kosher it is because the only part of the glass that gets hot is there's an element underneath the glass that heats up, and that part gets hot. But the heat doesn't spread. So if you want to spread the heat, you would have to cover with a blech, and you can't do that. It'll crack the glass top. Manufacturers tell you don't do that. So there's no practical way to kosher a glass top. What you could do is you could get they make copper plates for induction stove tops. Induction stove tops, there's no fire, and you put it works somehow. Then you put the pot on a copper plate, and then they turn on something that sends out waves or whatever, and it heats the pot. So you could get them easy to get it from Amazon. These copper covers for that type of cooking, and you then you could put the pot right on the copper cover. It's made to go right on top of the stove. So you don't have to kosher the stove because there's no contact between the stove and the pot if you put it on top of those copper plates. So otherwise it's very problematic. There's another eitzah that somebody told me recently, and that is you could put coins and make a support with quarters.
Well, you could use a cookie, like a grate.
You could use a grate. The only thing is that there's gonna be a big space. There's be
You
a
can get like a,
very shallow one. Yeah.
heavy duty. I bought it from my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
2 years ago because of COVID.
Okay. If cooked there.
It's off the surface.
So what is it? It's like a grate with a crisscross. It's like a rack.
Cooling rack.
A cooling rack. Okay, that's a good idea. Okay.
Heavy duty.
We should sell them before people go on vacation. That's a good idea. Okay. Yeah, you could get that's what a lot of people do when they travel. They take along a plug-in burner. Okay, let's talk about a microwave. A microwave, you could kosher a microwave, but you first of all you have to wait 24 hours before you kosher it, and then you want to kosher it with boiling water with steam. It became non-kosher with steam, so you kosher it with steam. To create the steam, you would put a bowl of microwave safe bowl in the microwave or a cup, and let it steam for about 15 minutes. And you want that the chamber should fill with steam, and that will kosher the microwave. And then you repeat that again because the area where the bowl is sitting didn't get koshered, so you have to move it and repeat the same thing over again. I always warn people that the water is supercharged, and if you move it before it cools down a little bit, it could explode. So you should wait like 10-15 minutes after you heat up the water, and then move it, and then you can fill it up again, and reheat it again. The glass, 15 minutes. The glass plate you cannot kosher because again we don't kosher glass for Pesach. So either you have to get another glass plate, but they're usually pretty expensive, or you could cover it with cardboard if you want, or with some other something else that would cover the surface, and then the window of the on the door that has to be covered also, because unlike the oven, the oven, the door, even the door, the glass window on the door gets very hot. But in the microwave, since the steam it's off to the side, so the post can feel that you have to cover that with cardboard. Dishwashers. So dishwashers. Every year I tell people it's not the greatest idea to kosher a dishwasher for Pesach, but if it's very important to you and you you want to kosher it, the method is it basically should be very clean, and then you run it through wait 24 hours and run it through a cycle. The problem with the dishwasher is twofold. One is that the water that you're using for koshering has to be hotter than the water that was used to make it non-kosher. So I recommend that you boil a pot of water and pour it into the bottom of the dishwasher before you run the cycle, and maybe half a pot of water, and that'll boost the temperature of the water, so that it'll be hotter than it was when it was used for non-kosher or for non-Pesach. The other problem is that the drain of a dishwasher, the way it works is it's a U-shaped pipe, and the water fills up from that pipe. It doesn't. There's no stopper that keeps the water in the dishwasher. It just fills up, and so those pipes. Steve Josefowitz told me they're always dirty when he takes apart a dishwasher. There's always stuff adhering to the pipes. So either you could have Steve come to your house and take apart the dishwasher, or somebody else, or if your husband knows how to do it, or you know how to do it. Otherwise, I tell people what they could do is, you have to use a heavy duty dishwasher cleaner. There's something called CLR, like the word clear, but without the vowels. And whatever the instructions are, you pour that into the dishwasher and run a cycle, and then you can assume that either it washes it away, or at least it'll make it totally not edible. And then you run a second cycle in order to kosher the dishwasher. Okay. Usually people ask me about warming drawers. Warming drawers are a problem. There is a way to kosher a warming drawer. I mean, first of all, you can't. People say, "Can't you line it?" But you can't. You wouldn't be able to line the ceiling of the warming drawer unless you figure out some way to do that the foil won't fall off. But the problem with the warming drawer is that in addition, even if you lined it, then you wouldn't have to kosher it. But it's very hard to line it. But you can't kosher like you kosher an oven, because an oven gets up to, even if it doesn't get up to 550, if it goes up to 450, you can leave it for 2 hours in kosher. But a warming drawer typically only gets up to about 200, 225. So there's no way to have elevated temperature. So there is a way to do it, and that you put sternos inside the warming drawer. But sternos will very likely burn out the wires in the warming drawer. So it's not a good idea. I mean, people when the professional mashgichim kosher with sternos, they take out the wires because they don't want them to get ruined. A candle tray does not need to be kosher; it just has to be clean. Which you use during the year. Tablecloths and towels. What? I don't know. Some people say I don't know. I don't think you need to cover it, because you don't put anything down there. You don't put the food down there, and you're not going to eat off it. Nothing. The utensils don't touch there.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I believe last year you said with the warming drawer, if you double wrap it like you do in a.
Oh, that's correct. If you double wrap anything, you could it's the same way like on the airline. The ovens are used simultaneously for non-kosher and kosher, but since it's double wrapped, the kosher meals are double wrapped, so that's nothing gets. So that's what you could do if you go to a hotel, you don't want to kosher the oven, you just double. The same thing for Pesach.
You have to line it in as well?
No, you don't have to do anything. You just double wrap it in silver foil, and that'll be sufficient. It doesn't cook the same way, but if you want, let's say you wanted to warm something, if you double wrap it, it'll be fine. The warming drawer. So towels and tablecloths, if you wash it in hot water with soap, it's sufficient to make it kosher for Pesach. However, you have to check it afterwards to make sure that there's nothing, no particles adhering to it. Stuff spills in there that gets stuck on it. It doesn't necessarily wash off. In general, it's better to cover tablecloths. You know, you could wash them so that you could use them, but then you should cover it with plastic, either throwaway plastic or thicker plastic. Okay, that's basically it covers the kitchen. Anything I left out or any questions?
So, the warming, with double wrapping the food in the warming drawer, so you have your food, you double wrapped it, it's touched your oven stick warming drawer, then what do you do with it? Then you can take it out and then put it down on your Pesach counter?
So,
Outside?
you mean the outer foil?
Take it out, right.
Okay, you're saying the outer foils. Okay, so I mean, if it's dry, so nothing gets absorbed in the foil, on the outer foil.
Can't you line
But-
it? Can't you just line the bottom drawer?
Yeah, you could line it. Yeah, but that's a good idea. You put foil on the bottom, and then you put your double wrap foil on top of that. That would be better. Okay. What? Say, oh, sinks. I didn't do sinks. Sinks are a big tircha. The sink, in order to kasher sink, if it's porcelain, you can't kasher it. If it's metal, you can kasher it. You have to pour boiling water over the entire surface of the sink. And pouring means when you pour water, it spreads out. That's not called kashering. It has to be this direct stream. So to kasher a sink could require 2 or 3 pots of water until you get it enough water to. And the sides, it's very hard to get the water on the sides. So what I do is I pour it sort of like on the top, and it cascades down. I use a teapot to pour it along the sides. And because you need so much water to kasher sink, so the people, well, we always talk about countertops. Could you kasher countertops with hot water? So theoretically, the answer is yeah. You could pour hot water on the countertop, and that would kasher it, but it'll also flood your kitchen because the amount of water that you would need to kasher it is going to be immense. And unless you have a drain in the middle of your floor, like they have in industrial kitchens, so then the question is, could you use a steamer? You could use a steamer if the steam would get real hot, but it's not. I tested maybe 20 different steamers. I kept my hand 2 or 3 inches away, and the steam's not hot. I didn't burn my hand. So an iron. I don't know how long. If you pour water on the you have to pour water. I don't know if it'll stay hot enough to kasher. So. There are industrial steamers, but they cost about $2,000. They're very high pressure, and the steam gets very hot. But so otherwise, the best thing to do with countertops is just to cover them.
With the sink, you have to leave it for 24 hours.
The sink before you kasher it should be left 24 hours. Yes, you can use it with cold water, but it's probably best, if possible, best to just put a plastic over the sink so nobody uses it. Period. Okay. Yes. To do you should use the kosher Pesach pot. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about products now. So, first of all,
It has to be lined.
the refrigerator should be lined. Yeah, refrigerator should be lined. Thank you. See, I told you could give the share better than me. Okay, first of all, I put out directories. If you didn't pick one up, there should be plenty here. There's a lot of information in the directory. Some of the most important information is in the very back of the directory on page 106. So first you have guidelines for medications, and you have also a list of non-food items that do not need to be kosher for Pesach. So you can look through the list yourself, but there's things like conditioners, carpet cleaners, candles, body wash. So basically, things that are not edible don't have to be kosher for Pesach. So even shampoo that sometimes they say that has wheat germ inside or something, it's totally not edible. So you're allowed to use that on Pesach. Some people make a tumult every year about paper plates because they're coated with something or there's some starch in the plate, but most people don't eat plates, so it's not considered an edible entity, and therefore you could use any plates. The OU,
The coated paper hot cups.
same thing. It doesn't matter. It's not edible. The OU poskim. This is based on what Rabbi Schachter Rebelsky said. You could use any deodorant or perfume, even though they have alcohol. But you could use them. It doesn't have to be kosher or Pesach. Toothpaste and mouthwash. really, if they're not edible, should also be okay. But since you put it in your mouth, so people are generally more careful with things that go in your mouth, that it should be kosher LePesach. I have this Rabbi Bess every year from California puts together a directory of cosmetics and medications. The mouthwash, the most common mouthwashes are Listerine. That the Colgate mouthwash, they're all okay, and Listerine, he has a whole bunch of different antiseptic, Coolmint Zero, fluoride defense, sensitivity. So it's better to use one of those types of mouthwashes. Lipstick, if you're using a flavored stick of lipstick, you probably shouldn't use. We could use a regular stick of lipstick. Just wipe off the end if it's used already, that it should be clean. The toothpaste is also, since it goes in your mouth, it's better to have a toothpaste that doesn't have any chametz in it. The toothpaste that are in Rabbi Bess's recommended book is, I know that Crest is okay, and did I write down what page this is on? Toothpaste, page 36. Toothpaste, so Aquafresh is okay. Arm & Hammer, Dental Care, and gel and paste are okay. Colgate, all the Colgates are okay. Yeah. All the Colgates are okay. Okay, he doesn't have Crest. I don't know, but he doesn't. Sensodyne is also okay. Yeah, Sensodyne's okay.
You said with the mouthwash, all the Listerines are fine?
I don't know if it's all, but I mean, it sounds to me like they're all the basic types of Listerine. I guess if there's some fancy, I don't know. I'll show you the book later, or if you email me, I'll send you a picture of that page. If anybody wants to ask me a question, you can email me at lubanY@ou.org. Please don't WhatsApp me, because I don't look at my WhatsApps, because I get too many emails. I don't keep up with all the emails. If you emailed me and I didn't answer, I apologize. It's not because I'm lazy. It's because it's just impossible to answer every single email. I do the best I can. Usually I'm up till 3 a.m. trying to answer emails. So, but I don't look at WhatsApp. So you could text me or email. But I'm happy to try to answer as many questions for you as I can. So, as far as medications, almost all forms of makeup are okay. Blush, rouge, foundations. I'm not such a big expert, but whatever it is that they use, they're basically all non-edible. Soaps are okay, although on the dishes, so it's best to get one of the kosher Pesach soaps. There's in the directory they have all the detergents that are okay. There's plenty that are okay. It's never a problem to find kosher Pesach ones for the dishes. Okay, as far as medications, so the rule is it's something that's not edible. Even if it has chametz, it loses its identity, and it's not considered chametz anymore. So most if it's a non-chewable pill, the pills are bitter and they're not edible, and therefore you don't have to worry about chametz. If it's a chewable pill, then that's a much bigger problem, especially since they make they flavor it so that it should be palatable. And the same thing is with a liquid. A liquid is probably even a bigger problem because some of the liquids have alcohol, which could be grain alcohol. So those, if you needed to use something like that, then you'll call me and I'll check in the directory here whether they're okay. But if it's pills, now vitamins, even though vitamins are also not edible, Ramesh Feinstein held that vitamins are treated like food, even though they're not edible. So a vitamin needs to be kosher LePesach, unless it's being taken for a medical condition. Then it becomes a medicine, not a food. So if, let's say, a person's iron deficient, then you could take a vitamin without a hechsher. But otherwise, vitamins should be kosher LePesach as well.
Capsules are the same like pills.
Capsules are the same as pills, yeah. Now there's two types of capsules. There's gel caps and there's the hard. Both of them are gelatin, but the hard caps, the gelatin's not edible. But the hard caps are the ones that you could pull it apart and pour it out. But if it's a gel cap, which is soft, that's edible gelatin. So that you even during the year, you should not use it.
So you sell it with your products, the vitamins, you sell the
Yeah.
vitamins, or you just have it and? you
The
sell it?
vitamins, yeah. I usually close it up. I close up the counter and.
Cover it?
I don't have to cover it. You put it in a closet, or you close the door and you put if it's on a shelf and you can't, I usually take it out if it's on the shelf and put it in a box or something and tape it up.
What about Tums?
Tums, if they're the best to use the unflavored Tums. They're okay. Plain Tums are okay. Okay. Some of the other things that you may want to know about is. In the directory, you have people always want to know about soy milk and almond milk. There's a listing in the directory about that on page 104. The ones that are okay. What about water? You would think the water there's nothing to talk about. So there's regular water. There's I don't know 10 pages of water in the directory, but you can buy any water. It doesn't have to be kosher Pesach. The only water that's maybe an issue is the mineral water. And the mineral water, they put some stuff into the water. It's not only natural minerals. It's it's possible to put some chametz into mineral water. The types of minerals they put in could be encapsulated in chametz, but it's definitely bottle in 60 parts. So, but there's a difference between before Pesach and on Pesach. Before Pesach, there's things are bottle b'shishim. On Pesach, it's not even a little drop was not bottled. So if the mineral water is purchased before Pesach, there's no problem. But if it's purchased on Pesach, it's possible that they made it. I don't know. It's unlikely to me that the turnaround time would be such that you're getting a bottle of mineral water that was made on Pesach. But it was made on Pesach, so there's 2 mineral waters in here in the directory that are okay anyway. We don't list more than that. But if you buy it before Pesach, you could buy any mineral water. You could yes.
Specifically, that's Costco, Kirkland. It's purified mineral water.
Oh, that's one of the ones that are in here?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
So beware. It's not pure water.
Oh, it's a mineral water.
Costco sells their own water.
Your own.
That's not.
No, you should buy it before Pesach. That's what she's saying. Yes.
Oh, you just buy it before Christmas. What about Instahot?
Instahot? You mean that you use what's an Instahot? It's the Instahot. Oh, yeah. So you leave it idle for 24 hours, and then you just run it for a few seconds and pour boiling water over the spout. That's the.
Would that be the same with the water cooler?
Water cooler, you don't have to kosher. Oh, you mean if it has a hot? It has, the same thing. We'll eat 24 hours and pour water over the spout. Yeah.
What about seltzer?
You could buy regular seltzer. You could buy any seltzer, except every year I note that my wife won't let me buy any seltzer, and I listen to my wife. I'm a good husband, but the halachically, I mean, most poskim, the issue with seltzer is that sometimes they get the carbon dioxide from beer production. When you make beer, so it releases carbon dioxide. They're able to capture it, and they use it for seltzer. But the OU poskim hold that it's nothing. It's just air, so it doesn't have any status. But that's regular seltzer. If it's flavored seltzer needs to have a hechsher year round and Pesach. You could buy any salt, as long as it's non-iodized. The iodized salt has in the carrier it may have some kitnios, sugar. Every year I've told you that you can buy any brand of sugar, but this year in the OU directory, it says you shouldn't buy sugar. So it's a very big chumrah. This is one of the things I also don't agree with. I mean, there could be a little tiny drop of something, emulsifier or something when they make sugar, but I don't think the sugar you buy in the store is not made on Pesach. So it's definitely bottled before Pesach. So for sure, if you buy it before Pesach, but even in Pesach, it's probably already was made before Pesach, and it's okay. Lactaid, the lactaid pills are chametz, so you can't use them. But lactaid milk has some chametz in it, but it's bottled b'shishim. If you buy it before Pesach, it's okay. But you cannot buy lactate milk on Pesach. Regular milk doesn't need a hechsher for Pesach. You can buy it even on Pesach, but lactate milk you have to buy before Pesach.
Buy all your milk before Pesach?
No, I just said if it's regular milk, you can buy it on Pesach. Lactate you have to buy before Pesach because lactate has some chametz in it, and the chametz won't be bottled.
That changed then. The milk, the regular milk.
Oh, you're right. You're not right. I take it back. You're right. It did change. No, it didn't change. The regular milk you should not. You should buy. If it doesn't have an extra for Pesach, you should buy it before Pesach. If it has an extra, you can buy it on Pesach. But if it doesn't have an extra, you should not buy regular milk only before Pesach.
And eggs?
Eggs is the question about eggs is that the chickens might eat grain. So some poskim hold it's an issue. Most poskim hold that it's not. So if you run out of eggs, you can buy them on Pesach. But I try every year to stack up on eggs, but it's impossible. I don't know. They disappear. Peeled carrots is okay to buy. It's fine. Frozen fish, Costco frozen salmon doesn't even without an OUP is okay. A lot of the raw meat, it depends where it's coming from. Like here in Lot 27, they butcher kishka in the butcher area they cut kishka. So we don't treat the meat as kosher Pesach. Purim time they clean up the kitchen and they kosher everything. So if you have meat from God 27 before Pesach, before Purim, you shouldn't use it for Pesach. In the supermarket, it depends. Somebody was just asking me tonight about ShopRite. ShopRite raw meat is kosher Pesach. They don't do chametz in the butcher area. So it depends on the individual store. If it's coming from the factory, like if it's Teva meat or Solomon or Meal Mart, these things. So if it's in the original packaging, then as long as there's no additives and it's raw meat, it's okay. Somebody asked me about chopped meat. If you look at the directory, they talk about this. Some meats are okay if they're chopped. Some meats are not okay. You could refer to the directory to see about that. Frozen fruit does not need a hechsher for Pesach. Frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are an issue. So, but frozen vegetables. 1 second. Frozen vegetables, because no, not all year they don't need a hechsher. Frozen vegetables don't. Beans, corn doesn't need. Corns and beans are kitnios, but I don't know which. Like frozen carrots. I think that the issue with frozen vegetables is that some of them are blanched beforehand, and and they might blanch other things that are chametz. Frozen fruit is fine. Raw nuts are fine, but you should look at the label and make sure there's no. Sometimes they use oil as a carrier for the BHT.
Does a frozen fruit need an OU at all?
No, it doesn't need unless it's a fruit that has an issue with strawberries with infestation. Otherwise, it's fine. Most frozen fruit is okay without a hechsher, but some raspberries are a problem. Period, because there's no way to check raspberries because when you peel it apart, it falls apart. Strawberries, you could use fresh strawberries. You have to wash them carefully. Frozen strawberries. The OU research shows that there's no bugs on frozen strawberries. So you could buy any frozen strawberries without a hechsher. Yeah. I will. I'll find. I wrote it down. Rochelle Desso, chopped meat. Okay. Okay. I want to go through I don't want to keep you much longer. Let's go through a few minutes. Some of the products that are available for Pesach. Quinoa. There was a period of time where the OU was not recommending quinoa for Pesach because it was questionable whether it's kitnios. But in the end, the poskim decided it's okay to be used for Pesach. So if you like quinoa, but it has to have an OUP. There's a bunch of brands that have an OUP. The OU started at the request of the Sephardic community that we should do products for Sephardim that are OU Kitnios that are kosher for Sfardim. We have a number of those products available. For example, Osem has OU Kitnios. Telma has cornflakes that are available with OU Kitnios. They'll be labeled. There's hummus that's OU Kitnios. So you just have to check the label when you buy things. Make sure if you're an Ashkenazi, if it says Kitnios, then you don't want to buy it. In terms of wine and other beverages for Pesach, most of the grape juice are kosher for Pesach. Just check the label. You should be aware that grape juice is usually mevushal. It's usually cooked, but there's one size grape juice in the 1.5 liter bottles that has the wide belly. It's not mevushal, and you have to be careful. If the bottle's open and you have a cleaning person in the house that's not Jewish, it would be problematic. So there's kosher Pesach vodka. When I was growing up, and for many of you, there was potatoes for Pesach, and that was about it. But now you could have kosher Pesach pizza and cake, whatever you want, macaroni, spaghetti. So there's kosher Pesach vodka from Lvov and Pravda. It's coming from Poland. I don't know. I hope it's still coming from Poland. There's OUP Arak under Zakwali brand. There's OUP sorghum whiskey. Okay, there's many different brands of matzah that's available for Pesach. Most of them have an OU as well as other hechsherim, and some of them are whole wheat. The important thing to know about matzah is that egg matzah is, according to Ashkenazic tradition, it's the same as kitnios. It should not be consumed. What's really different than kitnios? But egg matzah should only be consumed by somebody who's ill or else young children. Otherwise, we don't eat egg matzah. It's a little bit confusing. There's certain products that are made from egg matzah, like certain tam-tams are made from egg matzah, and it'll say on it, on the package, it will say Passover egg tam-tams. It'll say that it's only for the young or the infirm. You have to look at the label. There's other matzah products that even though they have other ingredients, but those ingredients are added after it's been, like you have chocolate covered matzahs. They use regular matzahs and then they chocolate cover it. So, but you have to look at the label to see exactly what it says. Then you know, of course, that there's cakes. Some cakes are made from matzah meal, and other cakes are made from potato starch. The matzah meal cakes are mazonos, whereas the potato starch cakes are a shahako. The soda, Coca-Cola, is the only main brand name soda that I know that has a hechsher for Pesach. It only is in the wide bottles. The regular and the diet, they have a distinctive yellow cap, so it's easy to see where it is in the store.
Israel, is that with Kitniyot? There's Coke Zero from Israel that one of my kids saw.
The story with Coke is that the Diet Coke has NutraSweet, and NutraSweet is made from kitnios. So the OU allows it because it's what's called kitnios shenishtana. The kitnios goes through a chemical transformation. So the OU holds, with respect to kitnios, that it's okay. Some of the other kashrus agencies don't accept it. So that's why you're getting a Coke from Israel.
And they're okay, the ones from Israel?
If it has a reliable hechsher, you have to, depends whose hechsher it is. But I mean, if you ask me, you could drink the regular Coke from America as long as it got a yellow cap and it has an OUP, it's okay. There's chocolate covered matzah, and there's matzah s'mores, whatever that is, I don't know. And there's the Barton's. Oh, see Barton's chocolate covered matzah. Oh, no, it's not egg matzah. But Barasini has chocolate covered matzahs that are egg matzahs. So you see, it's the same. You wouldn't know that one of them is egg matzahs, so you're not supposed to eat it except you give it to your kids. But the other one is regular matzah. You have to look at the label to see what it is. There's Chol Yisrael, yogurt, and regular yogurt with OUP. There's goat cheese and sheep cheese, mozzarella cheese, provolone. There's such a tremendous range of products. J&J has OUP cottage cheese, farmer cheese, cream cheese. Balinces, if you want kosher Pesach balinces. Bernie's Foods has kosher Pesach balinces, waffles, and pizza, as well as Latova Kichel has breadsticks, and they're all made from matzah meal. Dayenu Pizza and egg rolls and pierogies are made from matzah meal. There's the ubiquitous macaroons, which I grew up on. That was the only thing to eat on Pesach was macaroons. I cannot look at a macaroon, but there's all sorts of different flavors, but they have to have an OUP. Tuna fish is available from Seasoned Geffen and Mishpacha with an OUP, and also the ShopRite tuna fish has an OUP. It's available year round. Okay, there's Kedem has Sea Castle roasted seaweed and roasted spicy seaweed snacks. I never tasted that. Extra virgin olive oil is okay without a hechsher. Even year round, it doesn't need any hechsher. You could use it even without an OU. But if it's not extra virgin, then you would have to have an OU year round for Pesach, an OUP. Okay, let's just talk about coffee and tea. That's the last thing I'll discuss. Coffee, regular coffee, the issue with coffee is that sometimes they put in fillers or we have found that they put fillers in the coffee that could be kidneys. I don't know if it's even legal because it's not listed on the label. But the OU in the directory, the OU recommends the coffees that the OU considers to be acceptable for Pesach, even without the OU symbol. The two main brands are Folgers and Taster's Choice. Now, decaffeinated coffee is a separate problem because the agent that they use to decaffeinate could have it's an alcohol, and it could be kidneys. So you cannot assume that even the OU brands of coffee, that if it's regular, it's kosher upesach, but the decaffeinated not necessary. So Folgers decaffeinated instant coffee is okay, even without an OUP. I think Sanka decaffeinated coffee has a OKP, but you have to refer to the directory to see which coffees are which. But again, regular instant coffee, Folgers and Taster's Choice are okay, even without OUP. You know how to use the directory. There's a section of things that are acceptable with an OU, even though it doesn't have OUP, and then there's the ones that have to have an OUP. If it's ground coffee, that it's acceptable even without extra for Pesach, as long as it's not flavored, and as long as it is and not decaffeinated. Tea bags. The story with tea bags is that Lipton unflavored tea, even if it's decaffeinated, the tea bags are okay without a hechsher, but other decaffeinated tea bags need a hechsher. And then Sweet Touch Knee and Wasatsky has various types of teas with different flavored teas that are okay for Pesach. Okay, you'll have questions. You could call me, or you could text me, or email me. I just will close with one last thing, just to give us all a little bit of chizuk, and that is that Pesach is not only the most complicated yontif, but it's the hardest yontif, and we work very hard to prepare for Pesach. It's I think that first of all, in general, there's a rule from Tzar Agra. You reap the reward is equal to the effort, and nothing good in life comes without effort. You everything that is that you have a sense of accomplishment always requires effort. You could be very proud when you prepare the house, and we the Jewish women go over the top and they wipe down the walls, and everything is spotless, and that's because we learn from our mothers, and our mothers, your mothers, and your mothers learn from their mothers. I mentioned always in my house, the table is covered with 3 layers of tablecloths because that's what my mother did, and that's what my grandmother did. So these are all chumras, but we're extremely careful. But it's a reflection of the Yerushalayim that we have, that we're We're really super concerned, and we will be rewarded for that. And I think that it serves as a very powerful lesson for our children, because you want your children to grow up with a strong sense of morality and values, and whereas in society everything goes, but as Jews we know that we the total we can't do anything that you want, and not everything is okay, even though it feels good, which is how society often looks at things. There's we have values, and when the children see how hard you work, it really leaves an impression on the children, and it teaches you. It's one way that mothers teach Yiras Shamayim is by the children seeing how careful you are with Pesach. So even though it's hard, but it's very, very important. The Rebbeinu Shalom will reward you, and it will also have an impact on your family. I wish everybody a Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
Tonight is the outside of my house.
Tonight is
Yeah, the 28th of
right.
Adar.
Okay. Yeah, the Neshama should have an Aliyah. That's Mr. Kornfeld's yard site.
Yeah.
It's tonight.
Two this year because
Well, how many?
Adar-
Yeah, how many years is it now? 5, 6,
I think 7.
7 already.
The
Yeah.
25th.
20, yeah. Okay. Let's turn this off.